For 20 years, Safer Internet Day has shone a light on pervasive online abuse, bullying and exploitation. Commemorated every year on the 7th of February, it's become a landmark event in the online safety calendar. But until recently, South Africa lacked the national data needed to effectively protect our children who spend hours on end in the digital world. But no more. The newly released Disrupting Harm report picks apart South Africa SA children's online behaviors and experiences. Among its most startling findings is that as much as 10% of internet using children between the ages of 9 and 17 have experienced online abuse, and 17% of children interviewed had actually been asked to share sexually explicit images of themselves. Let's turn now to our guests this afternoon who work in this extremely challenging environment. From the Film and Publication Board, we're joined by CEO Dr. Mashilo Boloka, and Public and Media Skills Development Manager at Media Monitoring Africa is Phakamile Madonsela. And then from the Social Development Department, we are joined by Deputy Director for Child Exploitation, Gyan Dwarik. A very good afternoon to the three of you experts, people who can at least shine a light on this, help us understand it a bit better, help us find solutions at least, or to suggest and advise those in positions of power to try and explore these suggestions I'm hoping you guys will be able to give us. I'm going to start with you, Phakamile. You might look at the percentage and say 10%. You know, 10% when you look at a population of about 60 million, a lot of it is very young people. A lot of it is people between the ages of 9 and 17. Maybe not something to worry about right now, because it could definitely be worse given how we are called the GBV capital of the world. So when you look at 10%, you're thinking still manageable. But this is 10% of a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, pre-teens, you know, and then you've got a 17-year-old, impressionable teenager who is out there looking to explore themselves. It's a very concerning percentage when you look at the kinds of people and ages we're dealing with, no?
Thank you so much. Yes, definitely. I always say that when we have these really important discussions that 1% is too much. We should not even be, we should be fighting on the daily to get those numbers down. And if you look at the report from UNICEF that says that cyberbullying as well as sexting, which is child sexual abuse material, is on the rise. This is very concerning for civil society institutions like Media Monitoring Africa, but also for government departments like DSG and FPB, my colleagues in the room. So it is quite it's challenging. Every day there's a fight to lower those numbers, to ensure that one, our children are not exposed to harmful content, but also are not exposed to these ills. And then when they do, what procedures and what mechanisms do we have in place that can effectively deal with them in a sense that can not further cause harm but protect. So definitely something that we're always working against to ensure that our children are protected in the online space.
Gyan, 45% of the perpetrators are strangers. You can almost expect that to be the case because the internet is vast. The internet is accessed by people from all corners of the globe. So you could have a 11-year-old teenage or 11-year-old girl in South Africa being harassed and sexually abused by a 47-year-old man in Argentina. That's what the internet does for you. It opens you up to all sorts of dangers from all parts of the world. But 3% of the predators online are people that are very close to the children, family members. Gyan, how then do you deal with the matter if it is so close to the victim? Gyan, I'm sorry, it just looks like you're unmuted there. If you could just unmute yourself for us.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you very much. As indicated, the numbers are alarming. And when we look at people that are actually in contact with children online, and especially, as you indicated, from anywhere in the world, if we had to look at the issue of when you visit a country, it's very, very important to get a visa to visit that country. And as you alluded to, a perpetrator does not need a visa to enter the life space of your child. And this is where we are having problems with children. And as you indicated as well, that children are also being violated by persons known to them. And this has become a serious problem, especially when they are in an environment where children cannot expose the person that is close to them. But if they do, there are services that are readily available to assist these children. Remember, a child that is violated online will automatically be dealt with as a child in need of care and protection in terms of the Children's Act. So there are services that will then meet the child's needs. If the child's situation is now dangerous, if the child is at a severe risk environment, then that child will be removed from that particular care by a social worker. And as I said, there are programs that will address the specific needs of those children.
Dr. Mashilo, you know, when you look at the matter of the internet, and I don't want to sound like I am undermining or perhaps disrespecting the older generation by saying that they are not very au fait with the internet. They're not au fait with technology. They're not really up to speed with it. And boy, is the internet moving at quite a speed. You know, they need a lot of catching up. And I mean, I can relate to this because my 62-year-old father is still asking his children from time to time, hey, Kopon Tuseka 1, 2, and 3, Kopon Tuseka 1, 2, and 3. Certain things, you know, I'm not able to maneuver around. So when you have somebody who still needs assistance from the very children that are under threat from online abuse, how then are they going to be able to protect their children? What then are the parents to do in a situation like this? Dr. Mashilo, it looks like you yourself are muted. If you could just unmute yourself for us.
Okay.
There you are. Yes, we've got you now.
Okay. Thank you very much for having us this afternoon. Look, that which you've outlined is very correct. And I think that's why, as the Film and Publication Board, the Online Content Regulatory Authority of South Africa established in terms of the Act, what we do is we have established what we call a youth council, online safety youth council. This comprises very, very young council members whose job is to initiate their peer-to-peer conversation. They go to schools to engage with the learners on the safety and acting responsibly on the internet, because you are, as you correctly pointed out, it will be difficult for an elderly person like myself to engage the youth. They know better, and sometimes I have to request for their assistance. So for us, really, the first part of dealing with this problem is education, because sometimes the children don't know the effect of doing that. Hence, for us, we say, when you are on the internet, don't only think about yourself, think about the other person who's also using the internet, so that it becomes a collective responsibility. We also try to engage as much as possible with the teachers and the caregivers, as well as the parents, to kind of, you know, to get more digital safety tips. That's what we do as the Film and Publication Board, just to make sure that the children are aware of the dangers of the internet. Like you correctly pointed out, this is a vast and a transitional environment. You know, it knows no borders. So it's important that we continue to educate more our children on the online harms, and also try to engage, allow them to have conversations. I think the program that we have started with universities, TVT colleges, as well as, you know, high schools, I think has really helped us in terms of trying to raise those awareness amongst the children and learners.
Phakamile, there is a term that the cool kids are using that they call clout. You know, how then do you deal with a child who is a clout chaser, a clout fiend, somebody who is seeing what the internet can do for some people who, you know, have built careers just off of the internet, and yet, you know, it's perhaps not always very innocent in how careers can get built. So you're looking at this older person as a 15-year-old, you're looking at this older person who has built such a formidable career just off of the internet, and you're thinking, I'd like to be like that person. But then you're finding that you need to go through some very, you know, dark channels to make sure that you get to that particular point. And you know that you know better than your parent, and that there's nothing that your parent can tell you because you know better than them, and you just need this clout. What do you say to somebody like that? What skills do you give to a 15-year-old that is saying, if it can happen for that person, why can't it happen for me?
So I'm very fortunate to work with young people on the ground through the Web Rangers program, which is an international digital literacy program that is designed really to empower young people with critical skills so they're able to engage with the media and internet responsibly and encourage also their peers to do the same. And so I am fortunate enough to engage with young people on the daily basis around why are you using the internet? For what reason are you using the internet? Understanding that the internet is a great tool. That allows us to be able to connect with friends and family, to be able to express ourselves. But why are you using the internet? We always have these conversations, these really meaningful conversations with young people to say, why are you using the internet and what benefit do you see that the internet is having for your life? What is it doing for your career prospects? What is it doing for your personal development, for your growth as a young person? And so when we have these open discussions with web rangers, they're able to then see that, yes, clout is important because they're young people and they're trend makers, but also I have to use the internet creatively and innovatively, thinking outside the box about how do I advance opportunities that the internet has to offer while still being safe online. And so that's really the principle of the Web Rangers program. It's about teaching young people and empowering them with skills, with critical skills around how to use the internet responsibly and safely, but also how to take advantage of the opportunities that the internet has to offer, because undoubtedly so, the internet has many opportunities for our young people, for them to express themselves, for them to be able to build careers, to do homeschooling and so forth. And we've seen this with COVID. And so it's just about how do we change the mindset of young people to become active digital citizens. That's really an important word when we talk about child online safety. It's the concept of being an active digital citizen that is able to use the internet responsibly and safely, and also encourage your peers to do the same. I particularly like this year's Safer Internet Day theme, talking about together for a better internet. And I think that's really an important theme, because it says on one level, how can we ensure that we teach our young people to be responsible consumers of the online space and social media, but also on another level, how do we also allow for them to be producers of content that fights against cyber ills and online abuse, but also encourages a responsible, active digital citizens. And this has really been a powerful tool for us web rangers in dealing with cyber ills and dealing with irresponsible usage of the internet. And so our young people are always online, but doing responsible things, advocating for children to be safe and responsible online. And how do young people use the internet safely and responsibly?
Gyan, the government is still trying to navigate the fourth industrial revolution, still trying to navigate the digital space, still trying to find its place in the world where, you know, the internet, technology and such are concerned. But then there is still this problem, this 10% of between 9 and 17-year-olds that are affected by online abuse, something that, again, we leave at the government's doorstep, because, I mean, it is the government that we are hoping can come in and implement the kinds of solutions that'll protect. You know, after all, that is what they are in positions of power to do, is to protect and to serve. But then how does the government do that? Where do they start in ensuring that 10% becomes 5%, becomes no percent? Gyan, it looks like you're muted again. Apologies.
Okay, apologies. Look, when you look at children online, there are two aspects that we need to look at. We need to look at their online safety, which will fall within the bracket of prevention programs. Then we need to look at online child protection. And when we look at this, we look at our response as government to children that are at risk or who are victims of online violations. And this ties in very closely with the child's right in terms of our constitution. When the government has undertaken this Disrupting Harm study in collaboration with UNICEF to look at children's online use, risks and benefits. And as you indicated in terms of the statistics and the percentage of children being violated online and their use online. Well, there is now, it's important that we have a coordinating structure to address the specific issue. It's not the responsibility of one particular department. Although the Department of Social Development is the custodian of all children in South Africa. But however, when we look at online violations of children, we need to work with this in an intersectorial manner. So one of the recommendations of the study was to develop a coordinating structure to address the scourge of online violations and with specific mandates. So that is one of government's responsibilities. Then we have the 365 Days Child Protection Program of Action, which has monthly themes. Then we also have the Child Protection Month, which is now focusing on online safety of children. And here we will have community dialogues with children, look at the pros and cons of online use, risks and benefits. So these are measures that the Department of Social Development is putting in place. But I must emphasize that we have a strong working relationship with the Films and Publication Board, Media Monitoring Africa, and other relevant stakeholders, including civil society organizations. So it's an effort that's made by government. However, we do it in collaboration with each other. So I'm not too sure whether I answered you appropriately, but also there are individual programs that address children's needs, looking at the risk factors online, their safety factors, how do they protect themselves online? There are basic measures that children could use in order to protect themselves online. Yeah. If you wish, I could go through them for the purposes of children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gyan. You actually did answer my question quite emphatically. Dr. Mashilo, I want to leave the last word with you. You mentioned a very important thing, and that was education. Obviously, that is the education of the parent who knows very little about technology and the internet compared to their 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old child, their 17-year-old child. But the education cannot only but be for the parent who knows very little. It also needs to be for the teen or the young tween that knows too much. So, do we then introduce this at basic education level? Does Minister Angie Motshekga look perhaps at tweaking the curriculum to ensure that the kids that know too much know enough to also protect themselves with the too much that they know about the internet?
Indeed, like my colleague from Social Development said, I think this is a problem that no one, no matter how big your budget or how many people you have, it's a problem that on your own you can't solve. Therefore, you need a closer collaboration, both locally and internationally. Because, like the example that you used previously of saying that a perpetrator may be in Argentina, conversating with a child in South Africa. So this is a problem that requires us to collaborate nationally and internationally. So our training program covers starting with the parents, because you see, no matter what, I cannot be in Mr. Mutupi's house 24 hours. I can only start engaging with the child when the child is outside. Therefore, the responsibility starts with us as parents to say we should know what our children are watching. And I think there's a very interesting study, longitudinal study done by UNICEF's Bureau of Market Research, which said one of the challenges, especially for the 6 to 10-year-old, is their exposure to these online harms in a manner that is not voluntary. In other words, it's not their intention. You give your child your phone to play with, only to find that there are certain sites that, as an adult, you are visiting or you got the right to visit and look through, and then your child start being exposed to that. So for us, as the FPB, we work with all the stakeholders locally. Our training covers even the law enforcement agencies, the parents, the caregivers, and the teachers. That's the other part. And I think that conversation around policy to ensure that we've got digital literacy or online safety program is very key. At international level, we are a member of international, hotlines, in which even the Interpol, the International Police Service, is included. What we do, the importance of that is we create an online platform for any person to report any children's sexual abuse material. That's what we do. And we are hosting, fortunately or coincidentally, we are hosting them on Monday. And then we have brought in that workshop in Johannesburg all our international stakeholders, whether from the continent as well, because this is a global problem. And all of us require measures to deal with at the international level.
Most definitely. The expertise must come far and wide to deal with a problem that is far and wide. Dr. Mashilo, Phakamile and Gyan, thank you so much for joining us. This is a conversation, of course, that can not only but stop at a panel as such, and not only for Safer Internet Day or Safer Internet Month. It is definitely a conversation that needs to be had every single day of the year, because our children are exposed to harmful content on the internet every single day. But we will leave it there with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, that was Phakamile Madonsela, of course, from the Media Monitoring Africa Public and Media Skills Development Manager, as well as Dr. Mashilo Boloka, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Film and Publications Board, and also there from the Social Development Department, the Deputy Director is Gyan Dwarik. Thank you to the three of them.